Well, I got to say, it's so nice to look out and see these faces that I haven't seen for so long. We went away for the whole summer this year. We packed everyone in the car and we drove across the country. We've never done that. And that's a long time to be away. And I missed these Sunday check-ins. And the only time in the trip that felt like church was going through Saskatchewan for some reason. I still don't know why, but once we got into Saskatchewan, I don't know, the people, the sky, the landscape, it felt churchy. It felt very soulful. And then we kind of went into Northern Ontario and the bugs descended, and that was the end of that. But it's so nice to be back here. I feel a little bit like the warm-up band before the real rock stars that you've been waiting for come next week. But I think we're going to have fun here this morning. Okay, now part of this, I'm going to bring a little prop up, and then I'm going to have to switch microphones. But for the first part, I'm going to just going to use this one and stay here at the lectern. Okay, so let me ask you this. What did you do on last Wednesday? What did you do? Anyone remember? It's funny, it's only 4 days ago, not that long. It should be fresh in our minds. But here's the reason I ask. I heard a surprising stat not too long ago. When you ask people, of the last 30 days, how many can you actually remember? What number do you think most people say? What's the median number that people come up with of 30 days? 5 is close. It's actually 3 on average. 3 days out of 30. So that means, if you believe that stat, that 90% of our life is kind of just flash paper. We live it and whoo, it's gone. And maybe we can dial up a detail or two of this day or that day, but the rest of it is just kind of fog. Now, why should our memory for how our lives be so poor? Well, one answer is that we're not paying attention. That's the obvious answer, and in some ways the trendy answer, because it involves that M word, mindfulness, right? We aren't remembering because we're not being mindful. You can't remember what you never registered in the first place. And I do think that there's some truth to that. But I also think that there's another answer. We don't remember our days because too many of them aren't about anything. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So, they used to say of Wayne Gretzky, you can't stop him, you can only hope to contain him. And that's how a lot of the days feel like. We can't stop the gush of stuff that's coming at us, news, numbers, deadlines, requests we're meant to respond to, cat videos we watch because it beats responding to the stuff we're supposed to respond and dealing with those deadlines. You can't stop it. You can only kind of stay level with it. So we react to things, but it's hard to actually make any forward progress. And as a result, our to-do list at the end of the day often looks very much like it did in the morning. Nothing's checked off because we didn't actually finish anything. We have finished a lot of things. We nibbled and nibbled at a lot of things, but we didn't chew anything all the way through. And by the way, I'm using the royal we here, but I don't think I'm alone in this. At least I hope a few of you are thinking, yeah, that's kind of how my to-do list looks too. So in the end of the day, you had a day that was kind of about everything, so it wasn't about anything. And that's why it's forgettable. So at no point did we stop to ask ourselves, what does this day mean? We never tried to connect the dots of all the little things that were going on to see if there was something bigger going on. We never realized that there was a theme to the day, or that we could kind of create a theme to the day. So, 11 years ago, I took out a web domain name called thecarpediemproject.com. I squatted on that, and I knew I was going to do something with it. This was about the time that our eldest daughter, Madeline, was born. Things were getting really busy, and it was an amazing and magical time, as it is when you've got little kids. On the micro level, it just felt like days and weeks and months were running through my fingers. Jobs were taking forever to finish, and creative work was suffering because the time to do it was so fractured. And I don't know how you feel about creative stuff, but I kind of feel like you have to go into a trance and have people not knocking on your door, and you just need a little unbroken time to do it. And I didn't have any of that, and I felt like a career was in the dumper. And my attention span was so short. Now, research shows that most of us have roughly the same attention span as a goldfish. That's 9 seconds. I'm kidding. 9 seconds, and then we're beguiled by that shiny thing over there, and the trance is broken. Blame the internet for that. So between the interruptions coming from outside and the interruptions coming from inside, I found it hard to seize the day, any day. You can't stand out in a blizzard and try to seize snowflakes. But you can jam a lot of snowflakes together and make a snowball and seize that. And that was the driving idea behind what I called the Carpe Diem project. So here's the conceit. Okay, here's how I explain it to Bruce. And imagine that an envelope just dropped through your door. It has your name on it. Inside is a letter. You open the letter up, and it says, "Congratulations, you just won the time lottery. One day this month, you can push pause on all your commitments. You can put the world on hold. You can do anything you want. No interruptions guaranteed. There's just one catch. It has to be one thing, one project, one goal. Your job is to build your own mountain that you can get up and down in 24 hours. And that's all the letter says. So you're thinking, who sent this? How'd they arrange this for me? Don't ask too many questions, just accept the gift. But now you have a decision to make. What are you going to do? Work? You could work. Imagine what you could get done. But you could also dig deep into the bag of cool cockamamie ideas you vowed to one day get to when life got less crazy, which means never. It's all legitimate. It's all good. It's all up to you. Okay, so that's the premise of the Carpe Diem project. And I say that was the Carpe Diem project because I bought that domain name and then I sat on it so long that it expired. And the irony of that is lost on nobody. So a decade went by. And then a dear friend of mine died. And it was a friend who was all about seizing the day. And that kind of lit a fire under me to get this thing going again. And so I did. And I'm happy to report that the Carpe Diem project lives again, except it's not called the Carpe Diem project anymore. It's called, and Brian will know this, One Big Day. Okay. So I've actually given a few workshops on this now. And once I explain the premise, kind of the way I set it up for you, I invite people to brainstorm ideas. What might they do with their one big day if that worked out, then they just got a day like that. And I figured people would be busting with ideas. But it turns out it's kind of a hard assignment for a lot of people. Because a lot of people haven't really conceived of things in those terms. There's so many restrictions we put on ourselves that you can't just allow yourself to clear it away. So they need help. So they say, give me some for instances. Okay. Think of something that's important to you, but not urgent. In other words, it's not somebody else's fire that they need you to put out right now. It's your little fire that's been neglected because you can't give yourself permission to tend it. Okay. So that helps some people. It kind of opens the dam. And other people still need more help. Give me a concrete example. Okay. So your big day could be something as simple as brewing a pot of tea and sitting down with a novel and reading it cover to cover. When's the last time you did that? College, maybe? Finishing a book in one go is a completely different experience than reading it in little bites over weeks and months. You don't have to try to remember what you forgot. You don't have to go back and figure out where you are, who all the characters are. You get the vivid and continuous dream, as John Gardner used to call it. That's what the author intended. That's absolutely delicious. Okay, so that's one idea. Or you might decide to start that blog you've been talking about, right? So you spend the morning reading up on how to do it. In the afternoon, you write your first post. And after supper, you edit it, and you push send. Boom, you're a blogger in one day. Just like that. Or maybe you sit down and you try to develop that idea for an app that's been sort of percolating in the back of your mind since forever. Just the idea. You can't do an app in a day, but you can work out how to do it. So whatever speaks to you, it's all good. But keep in mind, it should be something that you need. You need it for your health or your soul or your marriage or your career. So, for example, a whole day spent shopping doesn't count. You don't need that. But a day spent not shopping, that might count if you like shopping just a bit too much. a consumer's cleanse might be just what the doctor ordered for you. And there is actually something called Buy Nothing Day, and a lot of you will be familiar with it. I worked pretty closely with the guy who popularized that, Kalle Lassen. And that is a legitimate big day in my books. It's a kind of an experiment with yourself to see if you can not make a single purchase all day long. It's actually harder than you think. Okay, so now that everybody kind of gets it, I'm going to go over to this board here and I'm going to sketch out what I do in workshops on this. Okay, so we have this grid here, and it's made up of two axes. This is the alone versus together axes, and this is the work versus play. And when you set up a board like this, you end up with 4 quadrants. Okay, so this would be the work alone quadrant, work together, play alone, play together. So when I've done this with groups, and I ask people to come up with 5 or 7 ideas of things they might do, and then they circulate them. And when we plot them on this graph, so far, most of them have ended up in this quadrant here, quadrant number 1, work alone. So I've seen things like, get that grant application done, you know, clean the attic, or do my taxes. Or a big one, maybe the biggest one that I hear is declutter. This decluttering, you know, Marie Kondo was onto something there, this business of getting rid of everything that doesn't spark joy. So many people feel like they need to declutter. And I think that, yes, it's getting rid of stuff, but it's also an attempt to get rid of the clutter in our heads. I think that that's partly what decluttering is all about. So I call these quadrant number 1 jobs, eat the frog jobs. They're unpleasant things, kind of maybe unpleasant things, but you know that once you get them done, you're going to feel so good. I think was it Mark Twain's idea that if you ate a frog first thing in the morning, everything else that happened in the day was going to feel like gravy. So you eat the frog first thing in the morning. And this is kind of eat the frog stuff. So work alone is one type of big day I see a lot of. And number 2, work together. Now, so people might say things like, take a coding class with a friend, or collaborate with an academic colleague on an idea for a paper you're going to present. These are pretty big things, but they're manageable in one day. Now this is where this quadrant is where all the action is in the corporate world right now. It's kind of the Harvard Business School model of project-based stuff, getting together with a team and knocking off some project. It's actually kind of the way the school curriculum is going now. They're starting to realize the value of project-based learning with teams. Okay, so, but you're seeing examples in the corporate world of presidents and CEOs who really get this, and they're giving their teams space to have a day like this. So there's a software CEO in Silicon Valley who offers his employees what he calls FedEx days. So you and your team can take a day. You don't have to come into work. You can meet wherever. All you have to do is work on this thing that you know that you're really hot for. And you have to produce something that didn't exist yesterday and present it to the group tomorrow. So all the reason they call FedEx days is whatever you do, it absolutely positively has to be delivered overnight, right? So that's the premise. And it's turning out that this is a pretty good way to work, because people, when you give them a leash like that, they're super motivated. And that guy in particular talks about all the stuff that these teams came up with in one day under those conditions. Okay, now when you move along this axis here from work to play, I think things get a little more soulful. And this play alone is actually my favorite quadrant here. I kind of made a pact to myself that I started doing this big day thing. I'm now on big day number 5 myself. And I made a pact that at least half of them had to be on this side of the grid, because it's super tempting to, if you've cleared the decks and everybody's made arrangements and they're not going to call you and you don't have the kids, okay, to just work, right? It's really tempting to just work and just get that done. But I don't think, and there are times when that's what you need to do, but I don't think that that's the way to get to the deep fish, is by working. I think that the important stuff we got to remember is the stuff that's not monetizable and not quantifiable and is feeding you in a different way. than your work is. So I divide this, this bit here into two sections. I call it outward bound and inward bound. And outward bound is a physical test that you give yourself. So my first ever one was, I decided, I wondered, almost kind of just being dreamy, how far could you get under your own power in a day? First of all, I thought, I'm going to walk. I'm going to start walking and see where I end up at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And then I thought, no, I'm going to cycle, because that's better. You can go far. You can take a bigger bite. That'll be better. And so I got on my crappy little 10-speed and I had a pannier full of sandwiches, and I started to head south. And I'll tell you more about how that day turned out in a moment. So that would be what I would call an outward bound day, although it was a little bit of an inward bound day too. An inward bound day, I think, is stretching yourself psychologically, emotionally, creatively, which is a bit different. Now, some of you will know Curtis Gallagher, who's a member of this church, and he was an early adopter of the big day ideas. And he did, his first big day was, I would call an inward bound day. Now, he used to be an indie musician of some repute. They had a couple of modest hits. He was in a couple of bands. One was called Donut, and he was in about 2 or 3 others. He was a vocalist. He's very versatile, and he still has, in the basement of his house, a mixing board, a studio, in the event that he ever finds time to go make music again. But now he's a suburban dad, and making music is somewhere down the list of things he has to do, so far down that he never does it. And so he took a day, and everybody was on board. And Michelle took the girls, and they actually came down at intervals and brought him food in the basement. And he made a song from scratch. He wrote it, he recorded all the guitar bits, all the keyboard bits, he mixed it, and he sang the vocals, and at 23 hours, 59 minutes, he pushed save. And he created a song. And I'm almost wishing I had brought it in so you could hear it here. And it's amazing. Now, here's a guy who claims to be easily distractible. And yet, when he was working on this thing that he really wanted to get to, he was like a laser. And I popped in every few hours. I made a little movie of it, and I put it up on the site. You can see it if you want. And so we compressed his 24-hour day into 3 minutes of this movie. And you can see him getting progressively more and more tired, but kind of intense and kind of crazy, and the stuff that came out of him was amazing. So that, I think, is a great example of an inward bound, play alone day. And a couple of other cool examples, I think, from this quadrant. I have a psychologist friend who teaches a course at Harvard, and she gives her students the assignment of making an experiment of a day, an experiment of themselves in a particular way. So she has one where she says, today is a yes day. You say yes to everything. No matter what the question is, the answer is yes, yes, yes. And she says that students actually feel quite liberated by that, because you don't have to think. Your decision, all that cognitive area that used to go to making decisions, it's just gone. You don't have, as she put it, you don't have to think about making the right choice. You just have to think about making the choice right. Which is pretty neat and pretty freeing. And another one she does is live as if your thoughts were transparent. So everyone you run into, whatever you may be thinking about them that's a little unkind, that thought goes and you think something more kind. And as you start to do that, you behave a little differently. And you kind of become a different person over the course of the day. And then by the end of the day, everybody's having a good day because of that little experiment. Anyways, this is the kind of fun we can have with this quadrant here. But arguably, and as I say, I like this one best, but arguably, kind of the highest level space to play in is this number 4, play together. Because now you're stretching and you're testing yourself, but you're doing it in community. So everybody's kind of doing it together, and there's kind of synergy benefits often when people do things together. So you're now seeing quite a bit of action in this space. You're seeing things like group rides, endurance races for charity, that kind of thing. Or you get together and have a community guerrilla gardening day, or something like that. right? Like some sort of, like a community bird count would count. You're doing something that can be done in a day, but you're getting the community involved. You take it, someone might say, I'm taking a dance class with my friend, or let's arrange a game of bubble soccer. Something fun, bringing the fun back and doing it in community. So these are all examples of things that people have come up with to sort of make hay on a day like that. And as I say, there's no kind of better ways than others to do these things. I think that they're all legitimate. But here's what I've come to realize about big days and the kind of the real value of them. And I didn't really know this when I was inventing the project, but it's kind of come to be, it's kind of risen to the surface of why am I actually doing this? Okay, this is why. So even before you actually do one, even if you ever think of doing it, even if it's not something you actually would do, just thinking about what you might do is a kind of therapy. So if you plot your top 10 ideas on that grid, where they fall, and which quadrant they fall, tells you something interesting. So where they fall on the vertical axis, that alone versus together, tells you if you're craving connection or solitude. And where they fall on that horizontal axis, work versus play, tells you if you've been taking life too seriously or maybe not seriously enough. Right? So once you put your ideas down as data points, you get a snapshot of what's out of balance in your life. And then as you get more and more data points in bigger and bigger groups, we start to figure out what's out of balance in the broader community. And if you had enough data points, we'd know what's out of balance in our whole culture. Right? And to me, that's valuable in itself. But I think that there's one level of value even beyond that. I think that this exercise helps us identify our core values. And this is why I'm telling you about it in church today, and why I think it fits with this group. So a lot of us here are preoccupied with trying to figure out what we should be doing with our one wild and precious life, right? And how we could do it better, and how we could make it matter more. So remember my theory that your wish list is a snapshot of what's out of balance in your life, right? So when I did that first day, that bike ride, I was craving two things. I was craving a physical test. I've been sitting too much. I needed a good physical test. And I was craving solitude. There was just too much coming in on me. So go as far as you can under your own power. That's what I came up with as my solution. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit about this challenge. I decided to just start riding. And I wasn't that prepared, and I wasn't super fit, but I was determined. And so I thought, how many people even know the answer to that, go as far as you can under your power? We don't know, because nobody ever does that, right? When we have somewhere far to go, we hop in the car. 1 minute we're in the driveway, and then boom, we're there. Except we didn't see anything. Along the way, we didn't feel and smell and sort of touch and be in the distance between here and there. And I thought that's the value of this experience. So I just, initially when I thought of walking, I thought, because I was thinking Thoreau, right? He walked everywhere. He walks to Fitchburg. That's how he spent his day. But the cycling seemed a better way to go because I could go farther. And should I tell you how I made it to Seattle from Lynn Valley, which is quite a long way. And it felt, and about halfway through, I was thinking, oh, man, this is about as tired as I've ever been. But I also was, I had gone through Bellingham, which we normally just whiz through, and I never even got out and explored Bellingham. It was fantastic, and little places along the way. And I enlisted some filmmaker friends of mine to go with me. And so I wasn't entirely alone, but they kept checking in and we made a little movie out of it, and I put that up on the site too. So it was a little bit of a cheat in that it wasn't total solitude, but it was pretty good that way. But here's why I'm coming back to the core value thing. About halfway into that day, somewhere around Bellingham, I had a bit of an epiphany, and that was that everything I was trying to escape, the kids with their endless demands and all these domestic chores that turn promising open days into kind of crazy standing out in the blizzard kind of days. That's all just the cost of doing family. And family, I realized out there on the road, is the thing I value more than anything else in my whole life. So I was pedaling madly away from what I should have been getting close to. You know, I indulged my fantasies of liberation down in the land of the free in the home of people with Trump signs on their lawns, and it made me homesick, you know. And I thought I had needed solitude, and I did. And I mean, it was amazing. But what I really needed was connection. What I really valued was connection. And there was no shortcut to that insight. I had to earn it. I had to earn it out there on my bicycle. You know, in our wedding vows, Jen and I included that poem from Rilke. You know, the one where he says, "To see the other whole against the sky." Well, there's only one way to see the people you love whole against the sky, and that's to take a step back. And for me, the big day was that step back. Jen would tell you this if she was here. I was high as a kite for about a week after that bike ride. She would tell you I was a different person after that. You know, I was attentive, and I was alive, and I was thinking, I haven't felt like this since I had hair. You know, I felt like I was, and it made me so excited to start crafting another big day, but this one would take direct aim at that newly identified number one core value of family. So this is what I want to leave you with here. So this isn't all the core values, obviously. These are 6 of them that came to mind for me. It's quite possible you have other core values that you don't see here, and if so, kind of mentally add them to the list. But I want you to look at those and try to figure out which of them is number one for you. Like if you were going to do a day that was built around your number one core value, what kind of a day would it be? Which one of these would you want to hit first? I think that's the way to think about this project, and to try to scratch the deepest itch that's in you, and not just the one that's top of mind. So I will tell you, I said that there was somebody who had inspired me to get this thing started again, a friend who died. And some of you know, that's my pal Olga, who took up track and field at age 77. And she had a saying that she said, "We're born with sealed doors, all of us. Open your envelope, look at it, and don't wait till you're 77 to do it like I did. Do it right now." And that's what I want to leave you with, as you think about whether you ever do one of these crazy big days, as I've outlined it. Think about making your day be about something, and something meaningful. And I wonder what would happen if all of us did that, even just once. Thanks so much for your kind attention.